Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Kyle's engineering the broadcast today in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Joining us today, Guineith Isaacs, live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Very, very well. You know, I'm delighted to be broadcasting with you. And you know, one of our favorite topics that we talk about is the other team. You know, who are they? And one of the things I've mentioned is, you know, there are people that live around here who are, well, in the military contractors, mercenaries.
That's right.
We've talked about that, and yeah, and so that's today's topic. The blue team. Who are they, and what motivates them? And I got to tell you, they're getting a worse reputation by the minute, beating up people, shooting more people. There's even a guy who made the news, a cop who pulled over a young gal. She was 18. Gave her a couple tickets, you know, for operating her motor vehicle. And then decided to check her out and look her up and say, I'll tell you what, if you can send me some pictures of you in the nude, we can make these tickets, we can actually reduce them. We can reduce them to the point where they're just warnings. So I'm going to need some, you know, photos. That's what happened. So, and fortunately for this young gal, she didn't comply. She did not comply with this cop's demand that he receive some pictures of her in the nude. Now, here's the question I have, class. Where are the fathers of these young gals? Where are the boyfriends of these women? Where are the husbands of these women? I got to tell you that if that happened to Mrs. Finelli, or if that happened to our daughter, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling I would become unglued.
Yep.
You know, I'd have to have absolute proof positive. But I have a feeling I would become unglued. I'm not sure exactly what that means. But in my current state of
adrenalization.
In my current adrenalized state, it wouldn't be good. It'd probably be good for our team, but I don't think it would be good for the other team. And so where are the fathers of these women who have been attacked verbally and demands made on them by guys with guns and handcuffs and an alleged authority to beat us up? Where dads, where are you? Where are the husbands and where are the boyfriends? And I've said it before. That if our son were at the Chinese factory outlet and Mrs. Finelli wanted to use the restroom, and she went into the restroom, and or our son's girlfriend went into the restroom, and then that then was followed in by some pervert, you know, some guy who wanted to use the ladies' room because he thought, you know, he couldn't figure out what his genitalia was or what his preference was. I got to tell you, that guy would have a broken nose.
Well, you know something? When my boys were littler and they needed to go to the bathroom, I would actually stand outside the bathroom
Sure.
at that
sure.
time.
We still do
Now
that.
probably break someone's face.
We still do that. We are
Yeah.
there in case something goes wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
If someone has to use
now they would absolutely break someone's face if anyone tried anything with either of them. But I still insist that they go together to the bathroom. But you would hear it all over the shopping centre if anybody tried it, because they would. It would be like setting a ferret loose in a chicken yard.
Yeah, a lot of noise.
The chickens would not be happy about it.
Yeah. I've got a short story for you. Sometimes you wonder, how it's all going to work out, and how you've raised your children, and what they might do in certain situations. You wonder when you're not there. So over the weekend we like to have family dinners once a week, and the children will be here. Sometimes the neighbors, sometimes other instructors. Sometimes it's just our family. So over the weekend it was just our family, and one of our boys decided that he was going to mow the orchard. So he hopped on the tractor, and he just no one said, "Hey, would you mow the orchard?" He just thought it needed to be done, and he did it. And I was really delighted. Did a great job, and so I said to him, "Let's go take a walk." So we walked out of the house and toward the orchard, and we're just chatting about different things and catching up, and it's just the two of us. And he said, I live in a college town, right? I said, "Oh yeah." And he said, there are a number of properties that come up for sale and for rent all the time because it's a college town. I said, "Yeah, I got it." He said, "Well, there was a sign put on the house next to him, and he said it's great. It really is great because some of his acquaintances who used to stop over and just annoy him don't come by anymore because they saw the sign, they figured he moved." And he thought that was kind of neat. And I thought, wow, what a great idea. Just put a sign up, when you don't want people to come that, place is sold. What a great idea. Then he started telling me about this Asian family that moved next door. He said, so they moved next door, and he looked out his window, and he saw that they parked on the other side of him. There were some visitors to this Asian family that moved in. They parked in the neighbor's driveway. They blocked in the driveway. They parked in front of the driveway. They parked in the driveway. And that's something you just don't do. You don't park in someone else's driveway. It's just unthought of. Well, they did. And then a little while later, the cars moved, and they parked in my son's driveway. They blocked him in. So my son went over to the door, rang the doorbell, and said, "You parked in my driveway." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you move your car? You're blocking me in. I can't get out." And so this Asian woman said, "Later." My son thought about it for maybe a second at the most. He said, "You're blocking me in. Can you move your car?" She said, "Later." He said, "Now." She said, "Later." He said, "Police." She said, "Okay."
I bet she moved it pretty quick.
The point I'm trying to make is sometimes you wonder how your children are going to react to certain things. And now, if it was our other son, he would have said, he would have gotten the backhoe. He would have gotten the backhoe.
I was going to say, he just would have moved the vehicle into it.
Yeah, he would have said, "That's all right, never mind, I'll take care of it." And he would have gotten the backhoe, and he would have just, hooked it up and moved it out of the way. Maybe pushed it sideways, maybe just shoved it in the middle of the road. But the reason I know this is because that happened. There was a guy who we helped who their car was upside down on our road, and we pulled it out of the ditch and put it up on cut a farmer's fence and got it out of the way so people could get by. And this guy was supposed to come back, and we were going to tow his car back home, down the road, a couple miles. And the guy didn't show up, so my son said, "No problem. It's locked. We don't need the key. I'll just drag it down the road." My son literally got in the backhoe, and he got some chains, and he was going to hook. He was on his way. He was on his way with the chains, and he was just going to drag this car down the road and get it out of our way.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that's what he was going to do. No, he wasn't going to ask permission or forgiveness. He was just going to do it because this guy failed to honor his obligation to get us the key so we could get his vehicle back to him. It was in our way. Well, and for a week. And so it just so happened. It just so happened that my son was on his way with the backhoe going down the road, and he saw the guy driving another car. He stopped him, put the backhoe sideways, and made sure he couldn't get around him. And my son said, "Hey, we're going to do this right now. Either you can do it with me, or I'm going to just drag it over to your house. Pick one. Just pick one." And the guy said, "I'll help you." So I know that's kind of the reaction. But I just want to share with you the decisiveness and how I guess our family has learned to negotiate very quickly.
Yeah. Well, something. I guess it all comes back to this, isn't it? If you look back at who the Finellis actually are in Italy, this may be the basis of the rumour that's circulating surrounding you. The Finellis in Italy actually are a mafia family.
My dad...
They run their own affairs, and they run them pretty well.
My dad was 6 feet tall, which is kind of unusual for someone of Italian heritage. Usually a lot shorter than that. But 6 feet tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And he was on the track team in high school and really could run. I'm convinced, I can't prove it, but at this point, but I'm convinced that he has Viking lineage in him because the Vikings did end up in northern Italy. And so blonde hair, blue-eyed Italian guy is, kind of unusual. And I could see him run. He was the strongest guy I've ever seen. I mean, not that he was, large. He was just, 185 pounds, 195. But really wiry, really strong, and never backed down. Never backed down. Kind, not offensive.
That's right.
But if he was forced into a corner, he'd come out swinging.
Don't push him around.
Yeah. We'll be right back. Class on Fridays. Dr. Joel Wallach is going to be with us on Fridays for an hour. And it's going to be a regular class on Fridays with Dr. Joel Wallach. So if you decide that you'd like to talk with Dr. Wallach, you can call him on Friday, and you can ask him your medical questions. Are you a little lethargic? Is your eyesight a little less than you'd like it to be? Would you like to have your eyes burn less or actually fix that? He has some answers, and the reason I mention this, I was having dinner with him and years ago, and he talked about this. He said, your eyes burn after, being in the studio? I can fix that. I'm thinking, really? You can? Are you sure? Yeah, I did. And just simple supplement that he recommended. He calls it D-Stress, D-STRESS. We all take it. He mentioned congestive heart failure. Oh, he can fix that. D-Stress. My mom takes it. And it works great. So we can talk about these things on Friday. If you'd like to give us a call, and 866-582-9933. And we'll be available on Fridays with Dr. Joel Wallach. Guineith, we were talking about the blue team, and we were talking about the mafia, and we were talking about... so actually, let me ask you this. How do we know who these people are? How do we figure this out?
Well, it's like this. You really don't know... with a police officer, when he pulls you over in your vehicle, you don't know who you're talking to. Really? Do you know this guy? Did you grow up with him in school? On some occasions, you do know the guy. Maybe he was the school bully, and then he grew up and he went to police academy and got a badge put on him, and now he's a bully for a living,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the thing about police records that most people don't realize is just exactly how malleable they are. Incidents can be made to appear on a police record that never happened. incidents can disappear from a police record. You know, I've known both things to happen.
Guineith,
Where people, mysteriously have people looking for them for stuff that, is this person's a lovely person. But the blue team have just taken a real dislike to them for whatever reason. And I'm not sure if you've heard of cases like that happening.
I have.
It's not supposed to happen. It's
Guineith,
not supposed to happen. But it does happen. And it happens all the time. Because these people are not law enforcement. They are private military contractors. Actually, in their official structure, that's what they are. They are normally hired by one of a very, very small number of companies, ultimately. You might think that they are your state police or your municipal police or your whatever. But you'll find that generally your so-called government has contracted out the hiring and the running of their police services, just like they've hired out the running of their garbage collecting services to one of a very small number of global companies. And it's the job of these global companies not to look after you, but to make a profit for their shareholders. And these companies, there's only a very, very small number of them. And I will tell you the ones that I have come across. I've only come across 3, okay? And they are companies which are called Serco, that's SERCO. They are responsible for running the Victoria Police, that's Victoria, Australia Police. I don't know if they're in charge of running any other state polices. But there is another one called G4S, okay? And there's a third one called Wilson. And they are basically the private military contractors that run the show around here in one way or another.
Hey, hold that thought. We're talking about the police. Who are they? We'll be right back. Guineith, you'd mentioned during the previous segment, and did I have any information that was similar to yours? And the answer is yes, I do. We used to have meetups every week in Springfield, Missouri, and one of our instructors is a former police officer. He has not been on the radio with us, but he was the instructor at the meetups. And I asked him if he would spend some time telling us what it's like as a police officer in the state of Missouri. And he talked about some of the duties he had, and he talked about how they have incentives to be more productive, and they were contests. And what would happen is the police officers, would be brought into a room, and they'd say, "Wow, let's see how we did last month." Like George, George was number 1. Did a great job. He was the most productive. Wow, look at this, guys. Now, this is something that you should aspire to. You should try to be able to have as many contacts as George did. He had X number of contacts, and more than the month before. He's doing a great job. And this is how many arrests he's had, how many DUIs, how many tickets he's written. George, let's give George a hand. Now, guys, this is why we have the equipment we have. This is why we have those new patrol cars, those new handguns that you got, the new handcuffs, the tasers, the cartridges, the training, all of these things. This is why we do it. So you guys will have an easier job making contacts with the other team out there, those people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was our friend, our instructor, didn't really do the things that he was encouraged to do. And he said, what happens is you get to ride a desk instead of riding around in a car. You don't get to have that new radar gun. You just ride a desk and you write reports. Actually, what happens is you rewrite reports. You make changes to those official records and reports that are in the system. And that's what you said. You said that there are changes that are made. And I'm telling you, we have an instructor who said that's exactly what he did. He was ordered to rewrite history. Rewrite what happened, and he refused to do it.
That doesn't surprise me 1 ounce.
Now, here's what else he said.
Absolutely not.
Here's what else he said.
What?
He said that if a policeman, a law enforcement type, does not have the production that they want him to have, he gets counseled. They talk to him and they bring him in. They say, well, you know, what's wrong? What can we do to help you? What can we do to help you write more tickets? What can we help you with that will help you pull people over more? And he would say, well, you know, there's this woman who had a flat tire and I helped her. But that's not what you're here for. Get out behind that radar gun. Okay, you're not there to do that kind of stuff. That's why they have tow trucks. That's why people call for roadside assistance. That's not your job to do that. That's what they used to do. You know, cops used to, if you locked yourself out of your car, they would use that jimmy and they would help you get back into your car. Now, no.
Yep.
No. Now they'll say just call a wrecker or call a locksmith. They could do it in 3 minutes, but that's not what they do. They could park their police car with the lights on to help protect you from somebody running into you when you're changing your flat tire, you know, on the side of the road. They could do that. But he was told that if production was not sufficient, you get transferred to the night shift in the combat zone with that old jalopy.
Yep.
You don't get that. You don't get that new Dodge Charger. You don't get that new Mustang. You don't get that fully outfitted, air conditioning, everything works, brand new, better than the taxpayers have vehicles. You don't get those. You get the old jalopy that's got the tires that leak in the back.
20 years
That's
old.
what you get.
Crown Victoria.
That's it. And that's what he said. He said that, and he quit. He quit. He refused to do it.
Yep.
So these are the people that you've been talking about. Now, I went to one of my high school reunions, the 25th. It was a long time ago. And I met one of the guys who I went to school with. And, you know, we're all asking each other, so what do you do, that kind of thing. And he was at the highest level of the police, the highest level in the state. And I looked at him, I was like, still pushing people around, huh? Exactly.
He was a school bully, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
That's right. They graduate and they become police officers. Yeah, one of the senior officers who was in charge of one of the stations around here until he bashed a woman up so bad that he put her in hospital for a week. He was the school bully. He was absolutely the school bully. You know, this woman is like 5 foot tall, weighed maybe 50 kilos. You know, single mum, having a nice evening out. You know, at a small country pub with her kids. You know, a counter meal and a glass of beer for herself. You know, I'm sure that they have such country bars around where you are.
Well, not exactly. Not exactly, but where we are, we don't have any bars. We hardly have any stores. But in the neighboring towns, yes, in the neighboring towns, sure. Mm-hmm. There's only 100 people who live here where we are. Yeah,
he basically saw this woman in the bar, and decided that he took a disliking to whatever, and she was just there having a meal with her kids, you know. And he just went bam with his fist so hard into this woman's abdominal cavity that he actually penetrated her abdominal wall. And that woman was in hospital for a week. And you know something? His partner officer who was with him, do you know what she did about it?
Not much.
Just about exactly nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, this officer turned around and charged the woman that he had assaulted so badly that her intestines will never be the same. He charged her with assault and put her on a 12-month good behaviour bond.
Yep. No question. There's no question that I believe that, because one of our class, and he's been on the air with us. His name is Steve Angle. Steve Angle lives in Kansas, Hayes, Kansas, Hayes, Kansas. He was at home during the weekend, late at night, around midnight, and the cops are at his door. He takes his .45 because it's late at night, and he transfers his 45 from his right hand to his left hand, holds it by the muzzle, opens the front door with his right hand, holding the .45 with his left hand. He can't shoot it by holding it by the muzzle. The cops put a gun in his face, beat him up. He ends up in the hospital, and they charge him with assault on 2 police officers with a deadly weapon. He was facing 20 years in prison. They came to his house.
Wow.
Yeah, and he didn't call him. And here's the problem. Here's the problem.
Thing is, having criminal charges on your record can absolutely ruin your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really, truly can. You are limited in the careers that you can pursue. Okay? If you happen to have any interaction with the so-called, well, let's just call them the child kidnappers, it's going to look really bad if you're somebody with a list, okay? It's going to make them treat you less favourably in a lot of locations if you have a list.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just people don't seem to understand. 90% of the people out there, 99% of the people out there just simply don't understand that because you've had negative interactions with the police, it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. Sometimes they do just pick somebody out of the community who's totally innocent. This poor soul could be male, female, old, young, doesn't matter, and decide to give them a bad time. And it's usually because they are somebody from a heritage that is not accustomed to bowing the knee and being a slave. That they made a request that this particular soul considered to be unreasonable, and this particular soul told them to go and get stuffed, basically, which is a term that they use colloquially around here for politely telling them to go away. So, yeah, that's, and with you, like I say, it could be the good old Italian heritage mixed with Viking heritage. With me, it's British blue blood and Pictish and Crusader heritage. If you went back 1,000 years ago, my ancestors would be Crusader knights. They were not accustomed to bowing the knee to anyone. And, before that, they were, if you go back 1,000 years from then, they would have been British cavemen, okay? Once again, they were not accustomed to bowing the knee. That was on my mother's side of the family. On my father's side of the family, they were British blue blood and banksters. Once again, say what you want about the banksters. Those were my ancestors. I can't help it who my ancestors were, but they were not going to bow the knee to anyone, and they still won't. And that's leading to a lot of problems. But for me, there's actually an advantage to it, where I see somebody who wants to dominate and enslave me, and I'd say, no, that's not going to happen.
Good for you.
It's not going to happen.
Guineith, in Missouri, in the state of Missouri, it is illegal to resist an illegal arrest. So when you fill out that employment application and it says, have you ever been arrested? You say, well, let me tell you about it. We'll be right back and we'll talk about it. Guineith Isaacs with us, and if you'd like to follow up and contact Guineith, you can go to usaprepares.com, page number 1, or you can go to the instructors tab at usaprepares.com, and you'll find the link to Guineith. It'll take you to our Facebook page. Guineith, in Missouri, in the state of Missouri, it is illegal to resist an illegal arrest. Now we have, it really is. So here's how I see this. One of our instructors is a guy named Aaron Brummett. He's been arrested multiple times. He's a preacher, and he preaches from the street. So he'll just stand on the street corner and he'll start talking, and the cops will come by. And they'll tell him to move on or whatever, and he says, it's his duty, right, obligation. He can preach from the street. So they haul him in. They put him in the back of the car, and they handcuff him with those torture handcuffs, the hinged handcuffs, the kind that cut off your circulation, and they'll arrest him. Well, think of this situation. So the cop comes up to him and says, and this is hypothetical. All right, put your hands behind your back, because they're going to handcuff him. He goes, wait a minute, hold it. Whoa, what's this all about? That could be cited as he was resisting arrest, because he turned around and said, wait, hold it. What are you doing? Okay. Now, in Missouri, resisting or interfering with an arrest can be either classified as a felony or a misdemeanor. Resisting or interfering with a felony arrest is deemed to be a felony, or it can be a felony charge, or it could be a misdemeanor. Now, Missouri statute makes resisting arrest if you flee in such a manner that the police believe you're fleeing, that's also resisting arrest. and it says at a website called stlcriminaldefense.com that if you or a loved one has been charged with resisting arrest, it's critical that you obtain knowledgeable and skilled lawyer who can fight this very serious charge. Prosecutors do not treat individuals who have been charged with resisting arrest lightly. They consider it serious. Now, also, it says that in Missouri, Missouri presumes that you, let me read exactly what it says. Missouri law presumes that an individual is fleeing if he or she continues to operate the automobile after that person has seen or should have clearly seen visible emergency lights or heard the audible signal from a police officer to stop. So if you did see it, they think you did see it, or you should have seen or heard it, and you continue, that you can be charged with resisting arrest.
Well, you know something?
That's happened to me.
When you've got a police car that is not clearly marked, and you've got those little lights on the, the window that are just in the front windscreen of the car, okay?
Right.
It can be very, very... And all I have to do is put them on for half a second,
Mm-hmm.
And if your kid's going, Mom! And you've turned your head the other way, and you haven't seen that flashing light going for half a second, and then the cop pulls you over and says, didn't you see my flashing light? You say, no. The best thing to say in that circumstance is absolutely nothing. Probably the best thing to do is to say something like, if they say, didn't you see that flashing light, is to probably say something like, is that a question? Or why? What is your purpose in asking that question? Okay? Don't say anything to them. I have had police bring me up on court cases that have lasted a year, 18 months, 2 years in the past for the fact that I have said 1, 2, or 3 really stupid words, and they make my life hell for 2 years at a time. Yeah.
Yep.
So
we're going
that's
to talk more about
the again. I think we're at the top
going
of
into
the hour, are we?
Yep, top of the hour. Going into a commercial break with news. Guineith and I will be right back. We're talking about the blue team. Who are they? And how do you deal with them? What do they want? It's really a problem. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, I'm looking at an article. It's DallasNews.com, as in Dallas, Texas. Headline, Texas officer... Oh, jeez, commercial comes up. Unbelievable. Don't you hate that when the commercials come up and they block what you're trying to see? I can't even read it now. Texas officer offered to dismiss a woman's tickets in exchange for nude photos, police say. And here's the article. An officer with the Baytown Police Department near Houston, that's Houston, Texas, has been accused of offering to dismiss 2 traffic tickets for an 18-year-old driver if she sent him nude photos. Officer Michael Koppock, C-O-P-P-O-C-K, 33, told the woman he would change the 2 traffic tickets for speeding and an expired registration to warnings in exchange for pictures, according to affidavits obtained by KHOU-TV. The woman told KHOU-TV that Koppock contacted her on social media about an hour after he pulled her over. Police say they viewed the screenshots of the conversation and described them as clearly coercive in nature, according to KHOU. Koppock didn't apply to an email from the station seeking comment on the allegations. He hasn't been charged. Has not been charged. So here we have a guy. We pay him to protect. We pay him to protect and serve, and he wants nude pictures of an 18-year-old girl. How do we trust somebody like that?
Well, it gives a whole new meaning to the word serve. If you're an animal breeder, the word serve has a particular meaning. I'm a dog breeder.
Yeah, service.
The word serve has a particular meaning in my world. That's one of I breed border collies, sheepdogs, and I breed border collie crosses, crossed with other types of sheepdog, and also crossed with Jack Russells. And some of those will go to being sheepdogs, and some of them will go to various other farm-related purposes, like, for instance, protecting the farm from rampaging rabbits and such like, you know. There's a little sheepdog, not a sheepdog, there's a little dog called a Jack Russell Terrier, and they're a jolly fine little dog. They're a really, really first-class rabbiter. But the strain that I've got is called a Parsons Jack Russell. It's the original Jack Russell Terrier. So I breed those, and I cross them with the border collies to make a dog called a border jack, which is a good all-round farm dog. And I've heard is also quite good at fly ball, but that's beside the point. Yeah, getting back to the topic, police. And, you know, I've actually got, if you want to go and have a look at my YouTube channel, I've run into this problem myself because I had it was the same officer that punched the woman in the stomach. This was before he'd done that, okay? This was probably about within 2 weeks from when we first arrived here, about 4 years ago. I'd been cutting fencing materials all day. I pulled over to the side of the road to have a sleep because I was absolutely exhausted. And that's what the Victoria Police actually advise us that you do. That's what all Australian state polices advise because it's such a huge country. People want to get home and they'll keep driving. They'll drive themselves off the road into a ditch because they quite literally fall asleep at the wheel. I don't know if that's a problem where you are. But it certainly is a problem here.
It's a problem here, and we have truck drivers. Well, here's what we're doing in the United States. We used to have a lot of rest stops, and the state would put them in where trucks could pull over and take that nap and be safer on the road. Well, we're pulling them out. We're closing them. We're shutting them down. Now the truck drivers are pulling over on the exit ramps, the entrance ramps, and they're idling their vehicles there because there's no place or fewer places for them to go. It's an outrage.
Yeah.
You know, we used to have enough money to do all these things. Now it seems like we're broke.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I'd pulled over not on an official rest stop, just on the side of the road because I was really, really tired. And I fell asleep. I only meant to sleep for about 15 minutes. But about 2 or 3 hours later, I hear this bang, 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 bang on my windshield, and I wake up and this bright light is shining through my windscreen, of my car, I think it was the driver's side door windscreen, and it was this blooming police officer, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm trying to have a sleep, and here's a handy tip: nothing that you say when you are within about 10 seconds or 30 seconds of you waking up can be used in a court of law against you, because you can say just about anything in that context, and it's not going to be accurate, it's not going to be true. The same thing as anything that you say within about, if you're in any sort of a state of shock, okay, because you are not in your right mind, and you will say almost anything as a result of a fight or flight reflex that operates from the reptilian part of your brain, the brain stem, okay? And its main concern is survival. It's there to keep you alive. And when you have had a major incident, you will naturally find that you will tend to operate from the brain stem. You could fling out with your arms, you could fling out with your fists if you feel that you're in danger. You could just do things that you would normally no way ever do because you feel that your life is in danger. And you are not, under those circumstances, if you have just been involved in a serious life-threatening situation, you are not responsible for your own actions, and no court can legitimately hold you to be responsible for your own actions. But I want to really, really talk about what people should do if they are in these sorts of situations, okay? Because this is really, really serious. I've been in this situation myself. That cop, the same cop that bashed my friend in the belly so badly that she was hospitalised for a week, he was going to come around to my house in the middle of the night, okay? He actually said, the words came out of his mouth, I'm coming around to your house later on, okay? And at this time, it would have been around about midnight. And I did not sleep much that night. I was terrified, because this, and I said to him at the time, if you come around to my place without a warrant, that would be trespass. We need to give these cops all the respect that they deserve. And in a lot of cases, that's absolutely none. They are not above the law. They have to be held accountable to the law, okay? I am not talking about people going out and harming people, all right? But what I am talking about is, I have to word this really, really carefully here. You have the right to charge people with trespass, okay, if they trespass on your property, okay? You have the right to issue them with infringement notices. They are not above the law. They work for a private corporation called military contractors, okay? In other words, they're mercenaries. They should not have half the protections that they have under the law. But if you respond with armed force, probably you're going to come out worse for it. You're either going to be dead or in prison in fairly short order, even if you live in an area where you still have your Second Amendment rights, because they have unlimited numbers of fellow blue team members who they can call upon, okay? And the community, most of them, 99% of them, just don't understand yet that this is the enemy, that we have been taken over and occupied. So armed force, I would say, in the majority of cases at the moment is not an option. But what you can do is you can hold them accountable to the law. In my experience, I have tried filing complaints with the internal complaints division of the Victoria Police. in my experience, that goes nowhere. And why would it? Because these guys are all, they actually, in the Victoria Police now, they call themselves members. They're not officers anymore. They're members. And when I heard that, the part of me that, has my husband's DNA, and there's a thing about husbands and wives having the same DNA after a while. Well, my husband, he was a gang member. Actually, he was a gang leader, okay? He was second in command of the knife gang in Glasgow, which is one of the biggest gangs in Glasgow to this day. And it was his great uncle who actually set up the knife gang when Archie was a child back in the 1930s. And they did that because they had a bit of a problem. And that was, that other gangs were running rampant, and the blue team seemed to be completely incompetent about doing anything about it. And so my husband's uncle decided that he would get some friends together and maintain their own security patrols at that time.
Hold that thought. We're going to a break. Guineith Isaacs with us. We'll be right back. In Missouri, there's been some discussion about jailing prisoners, people who have been arrested by the blue team. Let me read this headline, MissouriNet.com. Missouri Attorney General not planning to intervene in jail inmate fight night allegations. May 18th, 2017. The Missouri Attorney General's office does not anticipate at this time getting involved in claims that have been made about inmate fight nights at the Vernon County Jail in Missouri. This matter is under pending litigation in the Vernon County Circuit Court, says Deputy Chief Staff Lori Ann Paradise. The Attorney General's office is aware and is monitoring, but we do not anticipate intervening at this time. The jail, its jailers, and the sheriff are being sued for allegedly staging inmate fight nights.
Yeah, so
they're being absolutely.
They should be sued.
And it goes on to say that when people are in jail, they have no choice but to engage in these fights. So it sounds to me like the cops are involved in staging fights and forcing prisoners to fight each other, people whom they have arrested and jailed and told that they will be involved in fights. And if they don't, it'll be worse for the prisoners. Now, and what is the Attorney General doing about it?
Slavery. What's the difference between that and what the Romans were doing with going around to, Hebrew villages, Arab villages, other tribal villages, and basically coming in with overwhelming force, dragging off the able-bodied men and chucking them into the Colosseum and, telling them to fight or it will be much worse. It's no different. This is getting absolutely disgusting. These people need to be sued, but not only that, we have to stop consenting to their behaviour. Now, you might think, well, I don't agree with their behaviour. Of course I don't agree. Yeah, but you need to realise that there are actually laws out there that they have to keep to because their whole structure relies on these laws, and that's especially the universal, the UCC codes, okay? And I think I mentioned one of these last Friday. There's quite a number of them that relate to contract without consent, okay? If you are a corporation, which, as I've already pointed out, I don't know of any police force, really, that is not actually a corporation at this time, okay? Usually they are military industrial contractors, and it's exactly the same companies that our so-called government calls upon when they need to have some dirty work done in places like Central Europe or the Middle East. It's actually the same company, okay? You just take the police uniform off and you put another uniform on, and it's the same guy. They operate according to the same rule book, okay? They have their rule book that's for public release, and then they have how things actually go, which is their tacit, unspoken rule book. And that's what the cop who came to your meetups was talking about, okay? Now, for one thing, you need to hold them to their written rule book, which usually has something in it, which is a code of conduct, which usually has something that relates to your human rights. You need to go on the internet and you need to download a document called the United Nations International Declaration of Human Rights, and you need to just about totally memorize it, okay? Especially probably about the first 15 articles of that. Especially Article 13. You have the right to freely travel within state, that means national boundaries. We've got music again. We're heading into the last segment, aren't we?
No, this is the bottom of the hour. We've got 2 more segments. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs, I'm looking at an article, WashingtonPost.com. It says a year of reckoning. Police fatally shoot nearly 1,000.
Oh, my God.
In a year. Police were fatally, okay, how many? 564, okay. 90 of them were unarmed. 965 were fatally shot by the police in 2015. 564 were armed with a gun. 281 armed with another weapon. 90 were unarmed. Okay? Now, it goes on to say, this is amazing. I'm jumping to the middle of the article. It says, Officer Lisa Markle has chased Kasich, first by car, then on foot. Now she's zapped him with her taser, and he's writhing on the ground, on the snow, jammed up against the line of trees. Viewed through the camera attached to the each of 3 shocks. Kasich reacts to each of the 3 shocks from the stun gun. Merkel is screaming. Orders Kasich, who's already involuntarily on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. Okay, he responds, okay. The officer stands over him, repeatedly ordering him to lie down, show your hands. The 59-year-old does just that. He moans out in pain, pulls his right hand out from under his head, and stretches to display the hand. But 3 times during the video, Kasich does other things with his hands. As he says, okay to the officer's command, he reaches toward his jacket pocket. A little later, his left hand moves toward his front pants pocket. He appears to be trying to remove the taser wires from his clothing. 30 seconds later, he uses his left hand to lift himself slightly from the snow. Then, pop, shots fired. Within seconds, Kasich is flat on his stomach. He lifts his head. The officer now says, keep your hands where I can see him. The video ends. Kasich is dead, shot twice in the back. He was unarmed. And here's what he did. He gave chase after he was pulled over for having an expired inspection sticker on his car.
So that's an expired motor vehicle registration.
Yeah.
He's dead because he couldn't afford to pay the rego on his car.
Right. Probably right.
That is absolutely George. I thought I couldn't be surprised anymore, Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speechless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely disgustedly speechless. And I'm getting the feeling that this is actually not uncommon, that this is actually really, really common out there in the universe. Would I be mistaken?
No, I just did a search. It says, so I type in cop shoots unarmed teen. Okay? And here are some of the results. Black man with hands up shot 10 times by Houston police. Cop shoots unarmed man in Charlotte 10 times. North Carolina officer won't face second trial for shooting unarmed man. So why is it that warning shots are not fired, in the ground? Why is it that these police feel that they absolutely positively have to empty their handgun into somebody?
Because they're military contractors. They're not law enforcement.
I'm just asking the rhetorical question.
Yeah,
obviously.
That's right.
Obviously, something is really, really wrong. Their training is wrong. The people who train these cops to do this should be arrested. If they're training them to empty their handguns, if they're training the police to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot until your magazine is empty, it's crazy. And people are getting shot in the back. And here's what really bothers me. The cops say the same thing all the time. I was in fear of my life. I was in fear I was going to die. The guy's running away. The cop shoots the victim in the back, and then the cop says he was afraid. Really?
Yeah.
The guy's running away.
That's what they're told to say.
Yes. So that's what they say.
I leave the scene of an accident because I'm in fear of my life. Because there's a cop out there who, circulates in the area, who's threatened to come round to my place in the middle of the night, who's told me he's going to, for no reason, put me in jail when I'm driving my horse and cart around, who I found out bashed up my friend so badly that he put her in hospital for a week. And I leave the scene of an accident and don't wait for the police to show up because I'm in fear of my life.
Yep. And I understand
that.
I understand that. And here's my concern. So you look like Steve Angle, right? Steve Angle looks out the window and he sees the cops. He goes, oh, it's not so bad. It's the cops. It's not a bunch of ruffians. It's the cops. And, of course, then they beat him up when he opens his door. The answer is don't open the door. But here's the question. So you see these cops at your door, and there are many of them.
I don't feel
And they've got a battering, and they've got their black uniform on. They've got their Kevlar helmets on. They've got their riot gear on. One or two of them has a battering ram, and they're going to bash your door down. Now, does that constitute being in fear of your life? You bet.
Yeah.
You bet it does. You bet it does. So, what am I supposed to do if I see a situation like that? And I see that these guys, I don't know who they are. They're all dressed in black. They've got face masks on. They could be the police. I don't know. And they're going to bash my door down or someone else's door down. What does a person do? Do you say, are you kidding me? There's 4 of them, 6 of them, 12 of them. I don't know. Looks like they're going to kill us. Looks like they're going to kill us all. Everyone's got a gun, at least. Handgun, rifles, assault weapons, shotguns, tear gas. They're all out there. They're coming in. They're uninvited. They're trespassing. What are we supposed to do?
In that situation, I would say they're probably planning to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. That's how I see it.
Or totally and permanently incapacitate you, at least. I would say I would probably go with the worst case scenario, and I would say they're going to kill you. And you have every common law right to defend your life and your property. Now, like I said, I have to be really, really careful with what I say here. I would say retreat is probably the better option if you can.
Yeah, they're probably at the back door too, though.
If they have blocked you in, you are entitled by whatever means. You are going to die anyway. You have to assume that you are going to die, And you, under those circumstances, I would say they've completely blocked you in. They're coming at you with overwhelming force. You are entitled to defend yourself by whatever means presents itself, That's really, really a hard thing to say. I do not want to say that because, but what can you do? If they come at you with overwhelming force like that, and you have no way out, and they are not being reasonable, they are not in a mood to discuss things, And like I say, if you have the option to flee, that is obviously the better option, because you're not going to, it's always better to not hurt people than to hurt people. But if you are not given a choice, okay, it's better to go down fighting, in my humble opinion. And like I say, maybe that's the Crusader Knight coming out in me. Maybe that's my ancestors who were British cavemen and who fought giants. And the giants are now extinct in the island of Britain, and the cavemen descendants are not. They're out there and about there walking around. I occasionally meet a fellow caveman descendant, and we're a pretty interesting bunch. There's not many of us, but we're out there. You know, you are entitled to defend yourself, okay? If you have the blue team, as what happened before, coming up the driveway, they have their regular uniforms on, there's 5 or 6 of them or whatever, and they, you know, are in a confrontational mood, but they're not in SWAT team mode, okay? You tell them to leave your property. Actually, if you even have the SWAT team coming, you have got to say, you are here with unauthorized force. You need to leave my property now. You need to tell that to them, okay? And for one thing, that will help to keep you calm, okay? And it will help to keep you out of brainstem mode, because, like I said, brainstem mode fights without thinking about it, okay? It's there for your survival, all right? But if you can, it's best to stay out of that mode, because you'll end up doing something you really, really regret if you're in brainstem mode. But if you have, as I had last year, 5 or 6 cops coming up your driveway, you need to say, get off my land. You are trespassing. Get off my land. And you need to be insistent about that, and you need to stand your ground, show your hands, show that you're unarmed, and just insist with your voice, get off my land. You're invading my privacy, you are invading my rights of habeas corpus, and you need to leave now, or you're going to be subject to, penalties of, infringement penalties.
How about this,
So what do you mean? So I'm going to issue you some fines, punitive damages. Get off my land, okay? And that's what you need to do. That is, and if they refuse to leave, after they've gone, you need to make up an affidavit as soon as possible, detailing exactly what happened, and you need to get it sworn by, and you need to get it witnessed by a judge, and you need to pursue legal action against those police officers.
Gwyneth, the question is, what happens when they cut your phone line, cut your power line, and disrupt your cell communications so you can't get word outward? Think about that. Class, there's a television show that you can watch on Netflix. It's called Blue Bloods. The star of the show is Tom Selleck, and it's about a police family. Police commissioner, current police commissioner, his father in the series is a former police commissioner. Selleck's son in the series is a detective first grade. His other son is a beat cop, and his daughter is a assistant district attorney, all in New York City's finest. And they refer to it as the family business. They refer to it as the family business. It's a business.
Yep.
Arresting people. They lie. They cheat. They obfuscate. They confuse. They misrepresent. They break the law. I'm talking about the Blue Bloods. They break the law. And they all appear to be this Catholic family. I was raised Catholic. They all appear, they say grace. A wonderful family. I mean, there's some very good points to it. But there's some dark sides about how they manipulate people. And what are they going after? More arrests, more convictions, putting more people in jail. That's the goal. More more arrests, more convictions, more people in jail. And it's over drugs. It's over small crimes. And there's some, murders as well. But the point is, so here's a story about a Kentucky police officer. And it's the police released a video of a cop shooting an unarmed black man almost immediately after telling him to put his hands up. The Louisville Metro Police Department released a body camera video showing the shooting of an unarmed black man that occurred almost immediately after the officers shouted, and they always shout, right, at him to put his hands up. Police Chief Steve Conrad said that he was reserving judgment until the completion of an internal investigation after the video was released on Thursday. The victim, a 38-year-old Bruce Warwick, is currently in the hospital in critical condition after being shot in the stomach. The incident unfolded Wednesday morning as three officers searched an abandoned house after receiving reports about a man using drugs outside the residence before going inside. In the video, officers were seen shouting as they walked around in the house, identifying themselves multiple times, asking anyone there to come out with their hands up. Eventually, Officer Sarah Stumler approaches a box spring leaning against the wall. Peeking behind the box spring, she sees Warwick hiding. Stumler shouts, "Show your hands," before almost immediately discharging her weapon. She fires, and then she swears.
Emptied the clip, right?
Well, I don't know how many times, but she shot him. The officers guide the victim to the floor. He doubles over in pain. And then they handcuff him. Then they wait for an ambulance. They apply pressure, and they tell him he's fine. He's fine. You're okay. Just hold on. So here we have a cop.
Just shot him, and he's okay. He's going to be fine.
Right. That guy should own that police department. Now, here's what I want to know. I want to know why, when this happens, when a police officer shoots somebody, and the cops rally in the blue.
Why are they not charged with attempted murder?
Correct. Number one. Number two, why aren't they individually charged? Why is that officer on paid leave or paid desk duty? Okay, why are they paid? Because when the cops arrest one of us and we end up in jail, we lose our jobs because we can't get there. We may lose our house because we can't make our mortgage payments or our car payments, right? They seem to get continued
on your career,
pay.
You might lose your whole career, depending on what career you have.
Right. Why is it that the cops are allowed to continue to get paid? I'd like to see the pay stop right then and there. Right then and there. While they're under investigation. And here's why.
That's right.
If it happened like that, the same way it happens to us, cops would be really worried. They say, you know what, I better not pull out my gun and shoot that guy because I might lose my house, my car, my family, like the rest of us would. It's a double standard. It's unacceptable. It needs to change right now.
That's the end of the show, isn't it?
It is. By the way, Guineith, I just want to let you know, I got 2 apologies from the state of Missouri for coming after us for alleged sales tax that was never due, and they apologized. They said, you know what? We were wrong. We were wrong. Most so sorry. So, ladies and gentlemen, class.
That's what you got to do.
You got to get tough.
UCC 1308.
Guineith, thanks so much for being with us. See you next week.